can understand why she's frustrated. That's how I feel watching her interviews.
How do you feel about the impact that she's having on young Black girls? And I'm going to be completely honest, on Black women.
You know, this is yet another area that's getting vibrant. It's getting full in the way that it should be.
Ironheart is practically unwatchable.
This show basically keyed their car, their mom, and in their bowl of cereal in the morning.
She has to really reckon with what that means for the life that she wants to lead.
It's very short-lived. It's brushed over really quickly, and she kind of reverts back to her old self.
But one thing is for certain about this series is that all agendas aside, let's be very real about this. There's a lack of character development. The directing, the producing, the writing is just way off. It makes no sense at all, and it's very lackluster. There's no depth to it all. There is also way too much focus on the LGBTQ community by the fandom in a negative manner, and it just needs to go away, I think, for a healthy story to grow, and for Riri to really share her limelight with fans.
Natalie AI thing seems utterly preposterous and ridiculous, and even for an MCU show, I'm finding it to be a little bit of a bridge too far to go. The heist crew, all lame. Every single one of them, all lame.
And so in this, I'm not sure what they're meant to be, because this character isn't to be confused with Slog.
Slug, our hacker extraordinaire.
Who is also the exact opposite in the same show. I'm really confused.
See, it deserves your attention. Ironheart deserves your attention. That's how I knew. I was like, oh, they are desperate to get people to watch this show. But after I did my reaction, I kept getting, hey, it wasn't that bad. I just watched it. Hey, I just watched the first 3 episodes. It wasn't that bad.
Ironheart might be one of the worst executed ideas ever in the MCU, because under all that garbage was actually potential.
Did Marvel just fire the face of their own show because they failed? Dominique Thorne was supposed to be the next face of Marvel's new generation. Young, brilliant, and carrying the legacy of Iron Man in a post-Tony Stark world. She made her debut in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and it was clear Marvel had big plans for her. Ironheart was positioned as a bold step forward, a symbol of inclusion, representation, and futuristic storytelling. But somewhere along the way, everything unraveled.
Yeah, and it's like the real Tony Stark, it's like back somehow, and there's like a moment where she's flying through and he's like, who is that? And she's like, I'm Ironheart, Mr. Stark. And he's like, I like that girl. And then he like goes to do something else. Like that would be like the level of something that I think would possibly happen.
Ironheart is back, this time going to an uncomfortable place for viewers.
Ironheart is the biggest L of Marvel of all time. The reactions are just spectacular. Supposedly smarter than Tony Stark, bites an electric wire, sells her soul to gain magic powers, uses new powers to steal. What did the writers mean by this? Smoke detector beeps.
When Ironheart finally premiered, it didn't just underperform, it tanked. And what Marvel did next? Instead of canceling the show outright or taking accountability for its creative missteps, they turned on their own lead actress. Dominique Thorne, the very person they handpicked to carry the torch, was abruptly removed from Ironheart Season 2, quietly, without warning, and without explanation.
Ironheart is practically unwatchable. Toot toot, Jerry laughs. Yes, there is an alphabet character. They admit Ironheart sucks, but look, they're getting ready to blame you for it because Ironheart fulfills low expectations with weak narrative, poorly written characters, and dull action.
But Dominique didn't take it sitting down. Weeks later, news broke that she was suing Marvel for wrongful termination. The lawsuit was filled with accusations, character destruction, breach of contract, and claims that she had been made a scapegoat for the show's failure. The headlines blew up. Fans were stunned. Industry insiders started talking. Was Dominique really difficult to work with? Or did Marvel panic and look for someone to blame? And more importantly, what does this say about the future of the MCU? Because if Marvel is now turning on its own rising stars, what does that say about the state of the franchise behind the scene?
Does it defy the haters, or is it another skippable series? It's always about you, right? It's always about the audience. It's amazing. It doesn't matter if it's the 2024 election or whether it's a Disney streaming product. It's always about like how evil is the actual voters? How evil are the audience?
This isn't just a case of one actor filing a lawsuit. This is a signal that something far deeper is breaking inside Marvel Studios, and Dominique Thorne might be the one who accidentally exposed it all. Let's start with the moment everything began to crack, the release of Ironheart Season 1. When Marvel announced Ironheart, expectations were sky high. The series was meant to follow Riri Williams, a genius-level MIT student who builds her own Iron Man-style suit. It was meant to be bold, futuristic, symbolic. Dominique Thorne was praised as a strong casting choice, and early trailers teased a gritty, tech-driven storyline that would blend Wakandan science with Stark-level engineering. But then, the show actually came out. Right from the first episode, it was clear something was off. Fans called the pacing disjointed, the writing inconsistent, and the tone unclear. One minute it was trying to be dark and grounded, the next it leaned into goofy side characters and slapstick dialogue. Critics noticed too. The Rotten Tomatoes score dipped hard after the first 3 episodes. Viewership metrics dropped weekly, and by the finale, engagement had nearly flatlined. And despite all this, Marvel pushed a narrative that it was still a success. But behind closed doors, the vibe was different. Internal leaks suggested Disney executives were furious. They'd sunk tens of millions into the show, of course, and it hadn't generated the cultural wave they expected. Merchandise didn't move, social buzz was low, and to make things worse, Dominique, who was supposed to be the face of the series, wasn't getting the praise Marvel hoped for. But here's the twist. Most of the criticism wasn't aimed at her. Fans pointed fingers at the writing, the creative direction, and the rushed production schedule. Still, some reports claimed that Marvel higher-ups believed Dominique didn't carry the show as a lead. The studio began reevaluating the show's future, and instead of canceling it entirely, they considered changing the lead. That decision would come fast, but it wouldn't come clean, because in the months that followed, Marvel quietly cut ties with Dominique Thorne. No press release, no official statement, just a vague line about a new direction for season 2. And if Marvel thought Dominique would just walk away from that quietly, they were wrong. The announcement, or rather the lack of one, hit fans like a sucker punch. When casting updates for Ironheart season 2 started circulating online, Dominique Thorne's name was nowhere to be found. No promo shots, no interviews, no Comic-Con panels, just silence. For a show that literally carried her character's name, her absence was deafening. Marvel tried to brush it off. Creative restructuring, they said. Different thematic tone, they hinted. But none of that made sense. You don't restructure the lead of your own franchise unless something big is happening behind the scenes. And that's when the whispers started. Anonymous insiders began leaking details. Dominique was hard to work with. She didn't connect with the team. Some even claimed she clashed with producers over the show's direction, that she questioned certain choices, pushed back on rewrites, and demanded more character depth. But here's the thing. None of that was confirmed. No official statements, no receipts, just vague, character-damaging rumors that conveniently made Dominique look like the problem. Then, the real bombshell dropped. Dominique Thorne was suing Marvel. Wrongful termination, breach of contract. Her legal team filed an explosive case alleging that Marvel had deliberately painted her in a negative light to justify her removal, and worse, had damaged her career in the process. According to court documents, Dominique had a multi-season agreement. Breaking it required just cause, which Marvel didn't have. The suit claims that internal tensions, poor creative planning, and the show's failure were all redirected onto her to protect Marvel's image. And the most shocking part? Her team alleges that Marvel had no plans to cancel Ironheart, just to erase her from it entirely. Suddenly, the situation was no longer about a bad show. It was about power, control, reputation. Dominique wasn't just challenging a billion-dollar studio, she was calling them out publicly for using her as a scapegoat. And in doing so, she lit a fire that would expose even more cracks in Marvel's armor. Dominique Thorne didn't just walk away from Ironheart quietly, she fought back. And the way she did it shocked everyone, even longtime Marvel fans. Within weeks of being quietly removed from the show, Dominique's legal team filed a lawsuit against Marvel Studios. But this wasn't just about money. It was about reputation, accountability, and what she called a calculated smear campaign. The lawsuit outlined specific claims: wrongful termination, breach of contract, and intentional character destruction. According to Dominique's attorneys, Marvel didn't just fire her. They tried to destroy her professional credibility. They allegedly leaked negative stories to the press, labeled her uncooperative, and implied she was the reason Ironheart failed, even though she had no creative control over the show's writing or direction. One of the most explosive parts of the legal filing was the revelation that Dominique had flagged serious issues with the script during filming, and was reportedly ignored. The suit says she raised concerns about pacing, character development, and even representation in the dialogue. Rather than addressing those issues, Marvel allegedly removed her internally and framed her criticism as difficult behavior. Behind the scenes, sources claimed that Marvel executives were split. Some felt Dominique was right to be upset. Others saw her pushback as arrogance from a rising star who hadn't earned her place in the MCU yet. But here's the kicker. Dominique's contract allegedly guaranteed her participation in multiple seasons unless she violated very specific clauses, none of which her team argues she ever did. So when Marvel removed her without warning, they opened the door to this lawsuit. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Marvel was already facing criticism for declining quality, bad storytelling, and too many half-baked Disney Plus spin-offs. Now, they were being dragged into a messy public legal battle with one of their most prominent new talents. But the damage didn't stop with legal headlines. Dominique's lawsuit sparked outrage among fans, support from actors, and a growing sense that Marvel wasn't the well-oiled machine it used to be. It wasn't just about this one firing. It became a symbol of something bigger. And for Marvel, this wasn't the kind of attention they were ready for. Dominique's lawsuit didn't just reveal her personal conflict, it blew the lid off a growing, long-brewing problem inside Marvel Studios. Because let's be honest, this wasn't the first sign of trouble. Over the last few years, cracks have been forming behind the polished facade of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Since the end of the Infinity Saga, the studio has struggled to maintain its dominance. From Eternals to Ant-Man, Quantumania to the polarizing She-Hulk, fans have watched a once flawless franchise stumble again and again. But behind the scenes, things were even messier. Insiders began speaking out after Dominique's lawsuit went public. According to multiple reports, there's been a growing creative crisis within Marvel. Writers are rushed, directors are replaced mid-project, VFX teams are overworked, and top talent is being pressured to fit into formulas that just aren't working anymore. Some even say that Marvel has been so obsessed with quantity, putting out more shows, more characters, more content, that it lost focus on quality. And Dominique, she might have just been caught in the crossfire of all that chaos. According to industry gossip, her firing was more than just about Ironheart. It was about setting an example. Executives allegedly wanted to make it clear any pushback from actors, no matter how justified, wouldn't be tolerated. But the plan backfired hard, because now, instead of looking like a strong studio taking creative control, Marvel looked like a corporate machine throwing its own talent under the bus. Dominique's lawsuit painted the studio as paranoid, defensive, and crumbling under its own pressure. And it didn't take long before people started asking the real question. If they could do this to her, who's next? Other actors began distancing themselves. Some subtly unfollowed Marvel accounts. Others posted cryptic messages about respect and integrity in Hollywood. Even former Marvel stars, who once defended the studio without hesitation, stayed eerily quiet. Behind closed doors, rumors began swirling that Disney wasn't happy either. Executives at the parent company allegedly demanded internal investigations, reevaluated upcoming projects, and even considered reshuffling Marvel's upper leadership. In just a matter of weeks, Dominique's lawsuit had transformed from a legal dispute into a full-blown reckoning for Marvel Studios. And if they thought the fan base would just move on, they were completely wrong. When the lawsuit hit the news, Marvel probably expected a bit of backlash, maybe a few angry tweets, some mild outrage, then business as usual. But they severely underestimated how fans would respond. Within hours, social media exploded. The hashtag #JusticeForDominique began trending on Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. Clips of her performance in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever resurfaced, with fans pointing out how she had carried entire scenes with charisma and presence. Memes roasted Marvel's leadership. Fan accounts accused the studio of turning into a creative graveyard for its newer talent. And this wasn't just a loud minority, it became a movement. Fan pages that once hyped every Marvel release began questioning the studio's ethics. Reddit threads dissected every detail of the lawsuit. YouTubers who had previously celebrated the MCU's expansion began posting exposés titled things like "The MCU is imploding" and "Marvel's dirty secret just came out." Even more damaging, the controversy began to divide the fan base. One side blamed Dominique, claiming she was overreacting, a rising actress biting the hand that fed her. But the louder, more dominant voice came from those who believed she was targeted. They saw Marvel using her as a fall guy for their own missteps, a symptom of a studio that had become too big, too arrogant, and too disconnected from its audience. Former Marvel fans began drawing comparisons to other studios, highlighting how A24 or HBO gives its talent more creative freedom. Some even started saying the quiet part out loud. Maybe the Marvel era is finally over. And just when the dust could have settled, something else happened. Several former Marvel cast members, ones who had since moved on, began posting cryptic messages. One tweeted, "Being the face of something doesn't mean you have a voice in it." Another posted a throwback pic with Dominique captioned, "They'll regret it, trust me." These weren't just casual posts. They were warnings, silent support that added fuel to the fire. And Marvel? They didn't respond. No statements, no clarification, nothing but silence. And that silence spoke volumes. Fans weren't just angry, they were losing faith. The kind of faith that Marvel spent over a decade building. And that loss wasn't just emotional. It was starting to hit where it hurts most, the business. Marvel used to be the dream. Getting cast in the MCU meant global fame, box office dominance, and a guaranteed career boost. But after the Dominique Thorne controversy, something changed. Suddenly being associated with Marvel didn't carry the same prestige. Casting directors, agents, even producers started whispering about the Marvel problem. And that problem was now public. Rumors swirled that multiple actors, some A-list, some rising stars, began pulling out of negotiations for upcoming Disney Plus projects. An insider leaked that a well-known young actress dropped out of a Phase 6 series after Dominique's lawsuit made headlines. Why her team didn't like the way Marvel treats its newer talent. And this wasn't an isolated case. Behind closed doors, production timelines started slipping. Projects were being reevaluated. Scripts were being rewritten. Marvel reportedly shelved 2 unannounced shows to focus on damage control. The energy shifted from excitement to crisis management. But Dominique's case had another ripple effect. It drew attention from rival studios. Suddenly, Dominique Thorne was being talked about again, not as a fired actress, but as a wronged one. Indie studios started showing interest. A major streaming platform reportedly offered her a lead role in a sci-fi drama, just days after the lawsuit became public. For them, Dominique wasn't controlling. She was valuable, a symbol of what Hollywood still gets wrong, and what it could get right. Meanwhile, Marvel's leadership was scrambling. Disney, the parent company, was reportedly furious. According to leaks, executives executives called emergency meetings to discuss Marvel's public image crisis. Kevin Feige, once hailed as the mastermind of the MCU, was under pressure like never before. One Disney source even said, "If this gets any bigger, we may have to hit pause on Phase 6 entirely." And in the middle of this chaos, Ironheart Season 2, a show that now had no lead actress, no confirmed release date, and no fan excitement. Dominique's firing was supposed to fix Marvel's Ironheart problem. Instead, it became the symbol of everything wrong with the current MCU: corporate, cold, and creatively broken. And if Dominique's lawsuit ends up going to trial, the secrets that could spill out in court might damage Marvel more than any bad review ever could. As the controversy continued to grow, something unexpected happened. Dominique Thorne stopped being just an actress in a lawsuit. She became the symbol of something much bigger. More and more creators in Hollywood began speaking up, not just in support of her, but about the industry at large. Writers, voice actors, even crew members, people who normally stayed in the shadows, started sharing stories of being ignored, silenced, or cut out when projects went sideways. And more often than not, it was the newcomers, the underrepresented or the lesser-known talents who were thrown under the bus first. Dominique's case had cracked the surface of what many said was a culture of blame at Marvel, and maybe across the entire industry, a place where stars were built fast, discarded even faster, and blamed when billion-dollar franchises failed to deliver. What made Dominique's situation so powerful was how it flipped the narrative. Marvel wanted fans to believe she had failed them, but the more people looked into it, the clearer it became. She was never the problem. Her interviews from before the show's release resurfaced, showing someone deeply committed to the role, passionate, thoughtful, eager to connect with fans, someone who genuinely believed Ironheart could be something special. And that's what stung the most, because despite giving her all, Dominique was treated like a replaceable piece in a corporate machine. And the fans, they saw it, loud and clear. Support poured in from celebrities, producers, even Marvel fans who had once criticized her character. A few well-known directors even hinted they'd like to work with her once her lawsuit settled. One studio exec was quoted anonymously as saying, "Dominique Thorne may be removed by Marvel, but she's been greenlit by everyone else." In trying to silence her, Marvel had accidentally elevated her, and in doing so, they created the very story they were trying to avoid. A young actress who stood up to one of the biggest franchises in the world and refused to be erased. And now, all eyes were on what she'd do next. But while Dominique's future suddenly looked promising, Marvel's, that was another story. Marvel used to feel untouchable. From Iron Man to Endgame, the studio delivered hit after hit, building a shared universe that defined an era. But now, that universe is cracking, and Dominique Thorne's lawsuit may be the breaking point no one saw coming. Ironheart was never just about one show. Stepped back, it was about whether Marvel could pass the torch to a new generation, whether it could tell bold, inclusive stories without failure would mean whether it could something even worse. Instead, that the audience show became a turning Marvel, one that exposed everything Marvel's been avoiding: a rushed quantity over quality strategy, a leadership team too focused on output, not outcomes, a studio so afraid of failure it blamed the very people it once praised. And the worst part, they thought no one would notice. But fans noticed, the industry noticed, and Dominique made sure the world couldn't ignore it anymore. Now, Marvel finds itself in unfamiliar territory. Instant greatness, not as the invincible titan of cinema, but as a studio scrambling to protect its image while talent walks away, fans lose trust, and competitors catch up. Ironheart Season 2 has no star. Its future is unclear. And the court case? It hasn't even hit trial yet. If it does, the public will hear details that Marvel has fought hard to hope that the noise would fade away before anyone has too many questions. And possibly Marvel could have learned from this, because if Dominique's claims are true, Marvel still acting like it's 2019. To understand just how far off the rails to protect their own, we have to talk about what else have they been hiding? So now the question isn't just, will Ironheart return, or will Dominique win the case? It's bigger than that. Is Marvel still the future of cinema? Or did they just become the latest? There's no arc, no struggle, no studio that flew. She's confident because that's what the plot demands. Who made them powerful. There's no journey, just a